Hey, welcome back to the Gritty Glitter Badger podcast. I'm your host, Krista, and this is the place where muscle meets mindset, where science gets a little bit of a sparkle, if you will, and where I like to cut through the noise with zero BS, right? Now, before we dive into today's episode, I just want to be crystal clear about something. I am not, this episode, and me generally, I'm not here to discount the medical field, the medical system, right? Modern medicine has its place, right? It saves lives, and it's absolutely essential in you know certain situations. And today, what I'm talking about isn't about bashing the medical field or doctors, right? What I am here to talk about today is that I feel like we have gotten away from trusting ourselves. And that we've forgotten that our bodies were designed with layers of brilliance built right into every last cell of our body. And part of that brilliance is in our own unique individual biochemistry, right? Our internal chemistry that acts like a perfect personal pharmacy that is unique to each of us. I had actually was listening to a podcast, and this came up. And if you've been listening to me for a while, I'm absolutely obsessed with the brain, right? It's just so freaking fascinating, and it's amazing, right? What it can do, what it does, and all the things. And so they had talked about our brain being the pharmacy, and so I immediately started to deep dive, research, read articles, find as much information as I could, sorting through. And it's like I really wanted to talk about this on the podcast, and our brain was literally made to dispense what we need when we need it in ways that match our individual makeup, right? And when we start to trust that pharmacy, right, the pharmacy that, you know, for all intent and purposes, God or source or whatever you call it, gave us, that is inherent to us, instead of overriding it or doubting it, we can begin to tap into a whole new level of resilience and healing and strength. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to dive into how your brain is the most advanced pharmacy that you're ever going to walk into. It's with you 24/7, right? And it's one you've been carrying around since birth. So let's cruise on in to the topic of the day. Your brain called, and it's filling your script. So this is, I wanted today to be more like a conversation where we're sitting down and, we are just sitting over a metaphorical cup of coffee, or whatever it is that you would like to have. And I just want to have a conversation, you and me, right? Not the kind of conversation that spirals into a late night WebMD rabbit hole or whatever, but the kind that makes you lean in, like when you're talking with somebody and you nod and maybe even say, damn, God, that actually freaking makes sense, right? Or like, holy shit, I had no idea that's the coolest thing ever. And, today I want to talk about that, something that doesn't come in a prescription bottle, a blister pack, or, a brown glass jar or plastic bottle, if you will. It's not sitting behind the pharmacy counter, or you're not waiting in a line at the CVS, right? Again, like I had mentioned earlier, it's been inside of you all along since birth, and that is your brain, right? And the most sophisticated pharmacy on earth, it's in there. And here's the kicker. It's custom formulated just for you, right? No two brains dispense the same exact chemical cocktail because no two brains are wired exactly the same. Your brain is tailored to your unique chemistry and your life experiences, your stressors, your joys, and you know, just your very specific way of being human. That is yours and yours alone. There are 8 billion people in this world. There's only one of your brain. It is yours. There's only one of your personal, unique chemical cocktail, right? And when we start to really understand that, when we trust it, we begin to tap into one of the most underrated, underappreciated superpowers, in my opinion, that you already carry around in your skull. So the brain's chemical symphony. So your brain, it's not just an organ, right? It's a biochemical symphony conductor. So, picture this, right? Picture that orchestra pit, and it's filled with neurotransmitters and hormones. And there's the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, the endorphins, the cortisol, the norepinephrine, and the GABA, right? And they don't just float around randomly. They actually play notes at the exact right moment in harmony, and they adjust the tempo based on what your body needs. So if you're feeling stressed, boom, right? Cortisol and adrenaline are going to hit the bloodstream to help you react. If you're in love, cue oxytocin and dopamine. And what they're going to do is they're going to flood your system with bonding and bliss. And then if you're in pain, endorphins step in like little molecular morphine molecules, and they're there to help soothe. And if you're learning something new, there's glutamate and dopamine, and they team up. And what they do is they wire that memory deeper into your nervous system. You're right. So neuroscientists have long called the brain the body's command center. And, the phrase doesn't even really begin to scratch the surface. It's not just commanding, it's compounding. And it's literally dispensing neurochemicals with precision, with the precision of the world's most attentive pharmacist. Now let's talk about the pharmacy that, without a prescription pad, right? Okay, here's the wild part about this. So the pharmacy in your brain, it's responsive, and it's not this one size fits all prescription. It's not a generic 20 milligram dose, and it's just handed out to everybody, right? It responds to you and you alone, to your needs, to your specific stressors in your life, the exact sleep that you got last night, or the nutrition that you fed it, the movement that you gave it, right? What kind of brain activities were going on, the thoughts that you're thinking right now. Think of it like this. Two people can run the same 5K, and one finishes feeling euphoric from the runner's high, the endorphins and the anandamine, anandamine, I believe it's called. It's the release, right? And the others feel exhausted and irritable. The difference, each person's brain is dispensing a different blend of chemicals depending on their internal environment, right? You can take the same walk in the woods on 2 different days. One day, the serotonin levels are going to feel like the freaking light hits your retina, and it just lifts your mood and your soul, and it's literally like walking on air. And then on another, if your nervous system is fried, the same walk doesn't feel quite as magical, right? It might not even feel magical at all. That's the same environment, but it's a different brain pharmacy response. And what's funny is that actually happens to me, because I ruck in the forest almost daily. If I don't ruck there, I go through my neighborhood, right? So I'm getting out there, and I will go back to some of the trails and I'll hit them. And it's like literally like one time I hit it, and it's like, God, it's magical, and it's so cool, and everything's in it, and I'm vibing, and I'm all in, and I'm taking everything, and I'm noticing all the things. And then there's like another time I could go out, and it's just like, okay, I'm out. I just want to get it done. And I'm not paying attention to those things. And I'm not being as in the moment as I am sometimes. So, there was my brain pharmacy was responding in a different way, right? And that's why it's so important to stop comparing your body, your healing and your mood to anybody else's, right? Your brain is not their brain, and your prescription is not their prescription. So I have to, no, let me rephrase that. I get to, because I love it, get a little sciencey, geeky side, right? But I'm going to simplify this and not make it so ridiculously complicated. You're going to be like, okay, tap out, bye, I'm done. So neurotransmitters, they are the prescription. So we've got dopamine, right? And dopamine is the motivation molecule. It drives the reward, the habit, and the learning. So if you get too little, it's low drive and depression. If you get too much, you risk taking, there's risk taking and addiction, right? And not like the risk taking, is not on the good end. Then there's serotonin, and this is your mood stabilizer. So it's found mostly in the gut, but it's regulated by your brain. So it calms, it grounds, and it regulates appetite and sleep. Then we have our endorphins, and these are the natural painkillers. They mimic opioids, right? But they are produced internally without any of those side effects or direct effects from the opioids. And of course, we have oxytocin, and this is the bonding hormone. And, it's released during hugs and, eye contact, even petting your dog. So I almost have perpetual oxytocin release every day of my life because I am fortunate enough to be able to have a business and I am at home with my dogs and just, oh, right now I can feel it. Like it's just this amazing little, it literally rewires the stress response toward a calm connection. And then norepinephrine, this is the alertness chemical, and this is what keeps you sharp, focused, and ready. So the hypothalamus, that is your pharmacist. And it's this cool almond-sized structure, and it's deep inside your brain. And this is your true pharmacist, right? And it regulates hunger and thirst and body temperature. And, crucially, the release of hormones from your pituitary gland, right? And the hypothalamus, it decides what medication, quote unquote, medication your body needs moment to moment, right? Again, your personal pharmaceutical prescription that your body is going to make. So the the placebo effect is proof in action. So, if you think about it, there are so many placebo studies out there, right? Where they do like the placebo and the nocebo, right? And you ever wonder why sugar pills sometimes work as well as medication? And that's the placebo, right? It's the pharmacy. So when you believe a pill will heal you, your brain actually releases the real biochemicals to do the actual job. And then there have been Harvard studies that have shown placebo effects can trigger measurable dopamine release, endorphin activation, and also even immune system changes, right? So your brain is literally capable of writing its own prescription without that outside drug. And again, all the side effects and the direct effects that happen. So the problem with all of this and all of the fantastic things that our brain just literally has available for us, right? Is we don't trust the pharmacist. Here's the thing, we've forgotten how to trust this inner pharmacy. And, quite honestly, there's a lot of, I have a lot of thoughts behind this, but that's not what I want to talk about today. I don't want to get into that. I just want to talk about how fucking cool our brain is, right? So we flood our body. I will mention we flood our bodies with stimulants and depressants and alcohol and sugar and quick fixes and synthetic shortcuts and this thing here and that thing there. And we scroll until dopamine is fried, right? And when think about doom scrolling, you're doing it. And the more you do it, you're going to need to do it more to keep those dopamines fresh and coming in, right? And we caffeinate until our cortisol spikes. Now, listen, I'm not saying that I have coffee in the morning, right? And 2 cups. I mean, we actually do it's 4 sigmatic and it's the half functional blend. It's actually really so good. But anyway, and then we medicate until serotonin receptors just downregulate, and it's not that medication is inherently bad. I mean, there are absolutely life-saving reasons for modern medicine, and I'd mentioned this early. But the baseline truth is your brain already knows how to dose you. And the issue, we keep cutting the pharmacist off mid-sentence. We keep cutting the pharmacist when they're writing our script. We don't even let them finish the script, and instead of listening, we automatically override, and instead of trusting, we doubt, right? And because I feel like we've been led to doubt ourselves, right? But instead of feeding it what it needs, sleep, movement, connection, presence, we jam the system with all of the external noise that is speaking against it. So how can we tap into our brain's natural pharmacy? So how do you step back into alignment and, with this perfect in-house pharmacist that you already have, right? You don't need a PhD in neuroscience. You just need daily practices that can begin to start signaling that you trust yourself, right? So, one, move your body. You know me, I am in the fitness world. Um, that's one of my main things, and I will always default to that, moving your body, right? Exercise is a universal prescription. And studies show that just 20 minutes of moderate exercise boosts dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. So think of it as walking up to the counter and saying, fill my happy pill, please, right? Um, Another one is sleep like it matters. I mean, sleep like it is your freaking professional job, because it is, right? And it does matter so much, because during deep sleep, your brain is clearing out toxic byproducts, right, via the lymphatic system. And I'm actually going to be doing a more in-depth podcast on this in the weeks coming up, right? And it resets neurotransmitter levels, right? So you shortchange your sleep and your pharmacist can't even restock the shelves. Feed the pharmacist. Your pharmacist loves to eat. So nutrients are raw materials for those neurotransmitters, right? You get tryptophan from turkey, eggs, cottage cheese, and this is a precursor to serotonin. And then there's tyrosine. Always these names, I'm always, like just my forte. You can get that in beef and tofu and dairy, right? Now I will add the caveat, yes, I have been called a food snob. And you know what? I'm going to take that title. If you can source your stuff locally and as close to home as possible, meet your farmers. If you can do that, I am a huge advocate of that. But the tyrosine is a precursor to dopamine, and then omega-3 fatty acids literally help receptors communicate better. Breathe and get present. When we can begin to, you know, work into mindfulness and breath work, right? This helps reduce cortisol and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, right? And this translates to telling your pharmacist, look, no rush orders right now. Take your time, right? Connect. It could be a hug, it could be laughter, even eye contact releases oxytocin. And, connection isn't this fluffy woo woo, like whatever thing, right? It's actual, it's pharmaceutical. And I can tell you that working from home and, most of what I do is from home. I do miss being able to connect more. And I always joke about like when I feel like I've peopled too much. And that's not a lie, but it's the people that you people with that make the difference, right? And I just feel like I need to people more with my people. Um, Trust small signals. So your brain whispers before it screams, right? You're not going to get this loud, like neon eat it Joe's type of sign. You're going to get like it's a gut twinge, or it could be the tight jaw, or that intuitive, not this way, right? And those are the pharmacist's note that they're writing on the prescription at the bottom. So some stories from the pharmacy floor, it could be the runner's high, right? For decades, scientists thought it was just endorphins, but it actually turns out it's also anandam, uh, anandamide. It's a cannabinoid that your brain produces naturally. And yes, your brain makes its own cannabis compounds. The calm hug is another one, right? When a baby cries and then you hold them close, their heart rate drops. You know why? Because oxytocin is flooding both of your systems, right? And it's regulating stress within seconds. And then something else is like that stress response. Have you ever noticed that your pupils will dilate and your breath quickens and your muscles prime before a big presentation, like if you're speaking in public or whatever? That's norepinephrine and adrenaline, and they're dosed exactly when you need them. So your brain isn't guessing, it's prescribing. And there's a ton of data to back it up. And I'm going to drop all of these into the show notes, so you can go find the articles and read them. But Nature Reviews Neuroscience showed that exercise-induced neurochemistry rivals antidepressant medication in mild to moderate depression, right? And it's largely due to that endorphin and the serotonin regulation. In 2015, a Harvard study on placebo analgesia found that patients who believed they were receiving pain medication released endogenous opioids measurable via PET scans. And a 2021 study in Cell Metabolism, it confirmed that the hypothalamus acts as a metabolic control hub where it's integrating signals and, from the body to regulate energy, hormones, and also healing. And, science, it's continuing to prove what wisdom traditions have always said, old medicine, if you will, that is centuries old. And your brain in particular carries the pharmacy within. So, how can you become your own pharmacist assistant? So, think of it like this way, your brain is the pharmacist and you're the assistant, right? And your job isn't to write the prescriptions, it's to stock the shelves, open the blinds, and keep the pharmacy clean. So, shelves stocked, that means eat nutrient dense food. Blinds open, get morning sunlight to set the circadian rhythm, and clean the counters, move your body, sleep deeply, and manage stress. Because the pharmacist does the rest for you. So, here's what I'm going to give to you. I just want to give maybe like a Badger style, no BS. You've been walking around waiting for permission slips. And I don't like to give permission slips out because I just, I've talked about how we shouldn't need a permission slip. But look, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the permission slip. I'm writing it out to heal, to feel better, to rest, to thrive. But the truth is, you already have the damn prescription. And that part is that prescription pad, it's inside your skull, right? And it's been there since day one. So, yes, modern medicine matters. It has its place. And yes, there are times when outside intervention is necessary, but don't discount the pharmacy that is already inside of you, the pharmacy that you own. And don't underestimate the biochemical fireworks that your brain is ready to set off the moment that you create the right conditions. You don't have to manufacture it. You just have to stop blocking it. So thanks for hanging with me today. And if this episode sparked something for you, share it with a friend who could use it, somebody you think could value in it. And hey, also don't forget to hit follow, drop me a 5-star review, leave comments. If you're listening to this on Spotify, there's a comment section right down below if you scroll down. If you're watching it on YouTube, please leave me a comment. Feedback. You liked it, you didn't like it. What did you like? What didn't you like? What with anything you want to hear, right? I love feedback, all kinds of feedback, because it helps me give you the best podcast that I can, right? And it helps to get the podcast out to more people when you comment and you leave reviews, and people who are ready to train hard, think deep, and then just to live wide open, right? And don't forget to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. It's freaking free. Like it's free. And you can go to grittyglitterbadger.com, hit the more tab, and you'll see subscribers list, right? You'll get tools in there, tips, badger bombs that go straight to your inbox. You're always the first to know about new drops on my fitness apps. You get discounts that nobody else will get. So until next time, stay savage, stay soulful, and keep shining. Peace. Badger out.